Welcome to the 6 Miles to Supper podcast. I'm your host, Kayla Cox, and I've lost over 80 pounds with intermittent fasting 6 days a week, eating whatever I wanted at my meals, taking a cheat day every Sunday, and walking 6 miles a day. And I'm here to help you on your weight loss journey. In today's episode, we're going to talk about the importance of humility on the weight loss journey. Now, recently, I was on the Calorie Conundrum podcast with Coach Strick, and we talked a little bit about my I've had enough moment. And so I've been reflecting a little bit on the humiliation I felt in that moment. And by the way, if you want to listen to that interview, I'll link to it in the show notes. And so when I was thinking about that word, humiliation, I kind of thought, I bet that has some sort of link to the word human, right? And actually it does. There are a lot of different words: humility, humble, human. They all come from this Proto-Indo-European root, which is dahim, and it means earth. So to me, that was really interesting to think about how, generally when we talk about being humble, it's about bringing ourselves a little bit lower, bringing ourselves down to earth a little bit. And I want to make clear, when I'm talking about humiliation or being humble or just having humility, I'm not talking about shaming. I think shaming yourself is bad. It's not productive. It's not going to help you help yourself. But having some humility, I have found to be really helpful. And even in that moment, that humiliating moment I found myself in, I'd been tagged in some photos on Facebook, and those photos, I just didn't recognize myself. And I think the real problem there was I just had this idea in my head of here's what I look like, and here's how I am in life. And the reality was just so starkly different. And that was a big cause of my pain in that moment. And, and I had other moments too, that were just humiliating. I remember there was one time where somebody assumed I was pregnant when I was not pregnant. I was realizing that I wasn't really fitting in my car anymore. Like I was spilling over the sides of the seats, and that was just, crazy to me that I was just seeing these things that just felt in the moment so embarrassing, so humiliating. And even something like going to the movies and sitting down and there was, not very much room in the seat. I would think, like, what happened? Why would they make smaller seats? And then realizing though, when I looked around, I thought, no, these are old seats. It's just me that's getting bigger. And that's, in the moment, it is humiliating. But those moments did help me. And that's my encouragement to you, is because, look, I've been around the block enough to know that when you are overweight, or just when you've struggled with your weight in the past, there's just going to be moments of humiliation. I've been called lots of names when I was a kid, and and I think it's terribly wrong to humiliate someone. But you can, I've find good in any situation if you really try hard. And those humiliating moments, even though they were embarrassing and they were very uncomfortable at the time, they did help me to motivate myself to make a change. And so after my I've had enough moment, I did start to see the importance of having some humility. That moment was really tough, but then once I started to move past it, I started to see that there was value there. And so as time went along, I tried to be better about being more humble by having some more humility. And the first thing I did that incorporated this was by taking progress photos of myself. I did it every week. I was really not losing weight, but I made myself take those pictures. And I did that because I wanted to just keep bringing myself back down to earth. And it really was humbling, because each week I would know, you didn't do anything this week really to move the needle. And here's the progress photo, and there's not a lot of progress that you could see between March 2014 and really about March of 2015. There's really nothing. In February 2015, I started going to the gym and I started to lose some weight. And what I've found is that really what humility comes down to is recognizing your own humanity and being really honest about that, being just self-aware. Like, I am human and I mess up, and sometimes I do things and I need to change. And when I try to make those changes, it probably won't go perfectly because, again, I'm human. And it was funny because I was reading a lot of self-help books at that time. My husband was getting into sales, and so I'm just reading all this self-help stuff. And one thing I kept seeing, like a tip I kept seeing, was to do time tracking. Like, track your time. If you don't think you have time, track your time. And I would just read right over that, and I would say, I don't have time. Like, I would just tell myself, like, I don't have time. I've got 3 small kids. I don't have time to even track my time. But finally, I thought, like, maybe I should be a bit more humble, because this was a big stumbling block for me with the whole weight loss thing. I kept thinking, I don't have time. Like, I don't have time to go work out. I don't have time to do this. And so I tracked my time for a few days, and it was very eye-opening. It was just like, whoa, what? I mean, I was humbled, basically, because I realized I had been wasting a lot of time. I mean, I was on Facebook and Pinterest, and I was watching TV and doing all these things, whereas I thought my day looked one way. When I really tracked my time, it was a totally different picture. And being able to do that, it took me humbling myself and to say, perhaps there's something I could change here, or maybe I'm not going to like what I see. And same thing, with getting on the scale. That was a very humbling experience, but I'm so glad I did it. It felt humiliating in the moment because not because necessarily the number was so incredibly high. It was 222.2 pounds, but it was so far from what I thought it was. I thought 180, 185 maybe. And so I was way off. And so these things that can, bring you back down to earth, they're kind of scary to do, is the point. And so it can be difficult to implement humility. But I think it's just so important. That's why I continue to wear a Fitbit and to weigh myself every day. It's about keeping myself down to earth, because it's very easy, once you've lost the weight, to just kind of think, I've got this in the bag. Like, I know what I'm doing. And so I don't need to plan anymore. I don't need to weigh myself anymore. I don't need to, track my steps or anything. Luckily, I stayed humble, because I knew, like, when I looked back on my life, I saw this pattern, this repeating pattern of what I would do. As soon as I lost the weight, what would I do? I would stop eating the way I'd been eating. I would go back to eating everything I love, doing whatever I wanted as far as eating goes, and never weighing myself. So again, just bringing in some humility has been really helpful. And, even just having a written plan, just saying, you know what, I need to write this down and commit to it. That was an act of humility. It was really interesting to me to kind of learn this about myself, that really, when I was at my highest weight, I was probably the most prideful and had the most exalted idea of myself, which is really interesting, because I think at the same time I was really struggling with self-worth, but it was like I had this really perfectionist kind of streak to me, and it was really prideful, and it was kind of like, either I have to be absolutely perfect or I'm absolutely worthless, and learning that that's just not true has been really helpful to me. Just learning, I'm human. I'm going to mess up. There are going to be times where I mess up on my plan, or, I'm going to maybe gain a little bit of weight, or maybe I'm not going to lose as quickly as I want to. This has been a process. I want to really emphasize this. Like, if you are listening and you think, yes, I'm not very humble in this way, like I'm kind of a perfectionist, just know that it's a process. It really is. It has taken me years, and I still have a lot of work left to do, but I've at least learned how to recognize it. And for the most part, everyone has blind spots. I just want to say that. And so I want to close with this thought. Humility is absolutely the most important when things are not going well on the weight loss journey. I have found for myself that that's when pride tends to sneak in, when it's like things are going wrong. What is my general go-to is like, oh, it's everyone else's fault. There are all these reasons why this is happening, and none of them have to do with me. It's all these other people. But instead, if I can just pause and then say, okay, perhaps this is based on, the ways I'm messing up. So, let's take an honest look at, how my consistency's been, or, what's actually going on. Have I been overeating? Usually, it's stress eating, things like that tend to creep in for me. And that's a really easy one to want to put onto other people, by the way. It's like, oh, well, they're stressing me out, and so they're the reason why I'm wanting to overeat. But, that's a choice. It's a choice, to sit there and overeat versus to take action, actually maybe have a conversation with the person, or to go for a walk, or to journal the thoughts out instead of eating. But instead, if you can just say, okay, I'm human, I've been messing up, so let's take an honest look, and just being really loving with yourself. And I've found that it's a lot easier to love yourself when you're humble. It is important to actually love yourself enough to want to make changes that will make your life better. And when you're humble and you just realize, like, okay, I'm human, therefore I'm going to make mistakes. When you take that approach, it's really easy that when you mess up, you just forgive yourself and say, okay, well, what can we learn from it? And then let's move on. So I hope you found this episode helpful. Again, I have found humility, trying to stay humble on the weight loss journey is really important. It's especially important in maintenance because you can really fall into some old bad habits. And if you're not willing to just remind yourself that you are human, that you have these weaknesses, it can be easy to start to deceive yourself to think, oh, I've got this all taken care of and I never have to think about this again. So thanks for joining me in this episode, and I'll see you in the next one. Frustrating obstacles appear in every weight loss journey. Plateaus, overeating, slow weight loss, emotional eating, and weight gain are a few of the common roadblocks that can cause you to quit before you hit your goal weight. The good news is, all these obstacles can be overcome. Each chapter in my book, Overcoming Weight Loss Obstacles: How to Keep Going When Things Get Difficult, will mentally prepare you for the challenges you are likely to face and will give you tips on how to overcome each one. It will help you to focus on the why behind losing weight and on the big picture, so that you can continue to make progress in a sustainable way. It's available as a paperback, ebook, or audiobook on Amazon and at other fine retailers. The link is in the show notes.